seconds.
Is this where the damn drumming and the music kicks in?
Yeah. What is going on, everybody? Hello, and welcome to On the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepardson, and today is Thursday, March the 16th, 2023, years after zero, and we're back with another episode. We did an episode less than 12 hours ago, and now here we are in your life, in your world once again. So thank you for listening, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being a fan of On the Pipe Podcast. And if you are not a fan of On the Pipe Podcast and you are hearing this, thank you even more because you're still listening. So I appreciate it. Anyway, this show, we're going to do more of a weekend review. I guess I want to take a moment. I don't know if apologize is the right word or what, but just kind of clear things up. First of all, there's a lot of positives that happened this weekend, just like there's a lot of positives that happen every weekend. And it seems like yesterday was filled with more of the negatives. And so that's why I wanted to come back on here to talk about the positives, to talk about the things that went on. Obviously, with Stu being a reoccurring guest on the show and with that stuff going on yesterday, we had to address it. We had to talk about it, but that is not the storyline of the weekend. That is not the only thing to take away from the weekend. And I don't know. So I've also been a little bit sleep deprived. I think every night this week. I got that YouTube video of the Georgia race finished at 3:30 in the morning on Monday morning. And then from there, I woke up early, went to work on T-shirts, had a couple meetings, and then all sorts of stuff. Tuesday night, once again, I quit working on T-shirts at 12:30 at night, and then I still went to the gym after that. I didn't get home till 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then that rolled into Wednesday, where I woke up early, had another meeting, went over to the new studio, shop, whatever you want to call it, and did some stuff there. It's been a crazy week. I've had little to no sleep. Brain was a little foggy. So yesterday's show, I feel like, wasn't my best. And then once we got started talking about it, it's like, man, the post on Instagram wasn't meant to stir the pot. It was simply meant to say, hey, here's what happened. Like, that's what we were waiting on to happen. We were waiting to get a judgment. And usually that's always accompanied by an email. Like, usually that comes first. The press release comes first. Hey, here's what happened. Here's what we're going to do. That never came, just the results updated. And so since there was no word or explanation or even anything put out there saying that they changed the final results and changed the points lead of the series, it was just updated on there. So really that was just to say, hey, here's what happened, or here's what the result is. I don't know what happened, but here's what the result is. So once we got started talking about it and talking about things on the show yesterday, it's like the more we talked about it and the more we circled back to it, the more I was like, what is there to even talk about? It's pretty cut and dry. I guess the main takeaways is that Stu wasn't the only one in the wrong. No matter how you want to look at it, he wasn't. And he did come off and do it. Now, he came off the track and admitted doing it. That there had to have been a reason, like he knew someone saw him, or dealing with the rider, like you said, how he kind of explained it, where he lost the position when he fell on the line, but then gained the position coming out of the line. Like, knew it was going to become an issue, and I think that's why he was so quick to kind of report it himself, to get ahead of it and get in front of it. Which is, I mean, a commendable thing to do. And granted, I don't want to turn this into another episode about it, but just kind of explaining yesterday what we did. But then once you talk about it, once you admit it, once you fess up to it, it kind of ties the hands of the promoters. Like, hey, you did it. Here's what we're gonna have to do. So, like I said, the more that we talked about it, the more it was like, yeah, I mean that's what happens in that scenario. I guess my only takeaways from it is when this happened in the past for a race win and someone was protested and someone took an illegal line, was on camera taking an illegal line, admitting to taking the wrong line, that person was not penalized. And that just all goes back to consistency. And then also all the other videos, there are several other videos of everyone taking illegal lines, and I don't think any of that stuff is going to come to the light. I mean, one of the spots is straight up in my YouTube video. And like I said, I talked to Tim Cotter directly on the phone yesterday, and he said because of the conditions of the race, because of this, that, and the other, no positions were gained. No one made any passes in those lines, so they weren't going to penalize anyone because everyone took it. My only issue with that is that should be common sense. Like in these situations, there should be a small gray area because it should be common sense of, hey, was this an egregious line? Did they gain an absurd amount of time by doing it? Did they make any passes in this line? Did they go 1 foot more than 25 foot? Maybe. Did they go on the outside of a placard tree? Maybe. But it should be looked at with common sense. But my issue with it is when you look at the Buckwheat 100, that was a line that ended up being like 26 feet. Like it was a negligible distance over 25 foot. The rule is 25 foot outside the arrows. That was a situation where it was like 26 foot outside the arrows. And not only that, but the video of it showed no one making any passes there. No one made any passes. And it was only 1 foot outside of the rule of the ruling. And then everyone got docked for that. And it's not only that, that was a race line that developed, and I don't think people took it intentionally to be a cheater, just like I don't think anyone in XC1, XC2, any of those classes, I don't think anybody intentionally cheats, but when you get docked for taking an illegal line, that in essence makes you a cheater, and I do know personally that people were very offended to be in the classification of being a cheater, taking a line that they did not take with any malice or any intent to make any passes. So at the end of the day, Stu admitted to it. It makes sense. He should have been docked because it happened and he said that he owned up to it. But in 2017, that also should have happened. So it didn't then, but it did now. And then also this weekend, no one gets docked because no one gained any advantages and it wasn't that far off the course. Well, at the Buckwheat, that should have been the same exact thing. 26 feet, and everyone took it, and no one gained an advantage. Why did everyone get docked then, and no one get docked now? That is my only thing. The point of media is to hold accountability and to point out things. And this, like it or not, like me or not, this is the largest third-party media outlet in the sport. And it feels weird for me to say that. You guys know I always come on here and say the show stinks. I say that only a couple people listen to it. The show's gotten pretty damn big, and it allows me to have a platform and to have a voice, and I appreciate all you all for supporting the show and for listening to it from then. But, I mean, I try to deliver everything as unbiased as possible, and if I have been biased in the past, I would love you to call me out on it. Stu and I have a really good relationship. I have a really good relationship with a lot of people on that front row, a lot of people on that second row. And I talked with several of them over this instance, the ones that benefited from it, the ones that got screwed by it, and everyone in between. And I got to see these guys every single weekend. And I got to get these guys on my show when something's going on in the sport. And so I try not to have any bias. I try not to directly promote or target anybody. And I try to be a neutral media source. That is my goal, to say the facts, to put it out there. When things happen, we got to talk about it. I mean, this is my livelihood. This is what I'm trying to make a living at doing, and I am 2 weeks away from doing this as a full-time gig for a year. And it sucks how personal it is and how intimate this can be as far as we're seeing the same people every single weekend. It's a small community. But at the same time, like, facts are facts, and whatever happens is whatever happens. And without something like this, then one, no one's forced to be held accountable. You can talk about it on Facebook and get mad about it, but I think this brings it into the public eye a little bit more. But also outside of that, it promotes the sport. So once again, I hate giving myself credit, and I did not mean for this tangent to take this long. One video that I posted on Monday is now over 140 million views. 140 million views. SportsCenter is going to post the video in the coming days. House of Highlights posted the video. They are getting multiple millions of views on that as well. My Instagram account reached over 28 million people last year. I had over 25 something, or I guess it was over 30 million views on just my Instagram alone last year. And then this year, I've already had one video on Instagram go over 15 million. Since that TikTok that went over 140 million, there's two more that are over a million. So what I'm getting at is I'm not saying this to brag about it or anything, but I'm saying that this podcast, it was downloaded over 500,000 times last year. That's over 500,000 times that people are seeing the sport and hearing people's names. I mean, in the past, you saw the race, well, you saw small portions of the race on Sundays on Racer TV, and you got a Instagram post that recapped the race, and that was it. That was the end of it. And so, like I said, like this podcast or not, like me or not, I don't care if you feel good, bad, or indifferent about me. Over 100 million people were introduced to the sport this week. SportsCenter is going to share a post of this sport this week. That is the biggest problem with money in this sport, is the outside exposure. There is no outside exposure. And so, granted, some of the stuff that we talk about on here, you might not like. And it may affect people in the wrong way. It might point out something that teams did that was a little bit shady. It might point out something that promoters did that was a little bit shady. But at the end of the day, this podcast, this platform allows this sport to reach so many more people. It allows it to get out there to so many more people. And maybe one of those 140 million people that watch that video are going to say, dang, I wonder if any of these races come near me. I would love to see one of those. And then they go to that race and say, this looks really cool. I'm going to get on Facebook Marketplace and look for a motorcycle. And then the next year, that race comes towards them, and they are an entry in that race. And now the sport has grown. And then they go tell their buddies, and then their buddies all buy dirt bikes. That's literally how this starts. And before, even still, really, there's no media sources in off-road. There's a few podcasts that are popping up that I'm not going to get into that segment, but there's really still not media. Like, the promoters promote themselves. The race series promote themselves. There is no one that is going out and talking about all the different race series except for OTP. And so all of this goes a long way in growing the sport, getting eyeballs on the sport, getting attention on the sport, getting people watching the sport that would never know about the sport had they not seen it on ESPN, or had it not showed up on their For You page, or had it not showed up in their search section of Instagram, or shown up on recommended videos on YouTube. Like, there's nothing else like it. And so, yeah, it bothers me sometimes when I take the brunt of some of the stuff going on, or I get made out to be the bad guy because all I'm doing is reporting the information. But at the end of the day, things I say, I try to be as unbiased as possible, but things I say are just saying what other people did. And so if you get mad at the things that I say, then maybe you should look at the things that were done instead, because all I did was say, hey, this person did this, these people did this, they decided to do this. And so it's not like I'm creating these storylines out of thin air and that I'm trying to stir something up that doesn't exist. I'm talking about what's going on. I'm talking about what's going on in the sport. And it's just like when I got some flack for releasing the news of silly season back in December. If I wasn't talking about that in December and didn't stir up all the not controversy, but stirred up all the storylines of then of, oh, did you hear Zacho's coming to off-road? Did you hear so-and-so moved to such and such team? If we weren't talking about that in December and you guys weren't following it in December and learning about it in December, who in the world would be talking about off-road racers in December? You know what I mean? Like, who in the world is talking about off-road racers on Wednesday? Like, before this point, it was on Sundays. It was 13 Sundays a year, or 8 additional Sundays if you're looking at national enduros, or 6 additional Sundays if you're looking at full gas enduros. But outside of race weekends, there was nothing. And without attention, without media, without these storylines coming to light, this sport is going to remain stagnant. It's not going to grow. People aren't going to make money. It's as simple as that. And granted, I think a big thing about this is accountability, but I hate always being negative, and that's why I always try to preface everything with, hey, GNCC, we'll use them for an example because that's what's in the everyone's minds right now. I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure every single time that I've ever brought up a GNCC mishap or something bad about it, I have prefaced it with, they are the biggest series in the world. They are the premier series in the world. They are the ones that everyone is trying to copy. They are the top of the top, the cream of the crop, however you want to look at it. And so I don't mean it to be all negative, but at the end of the day, controversy sells, like it or not. I mean, that's the way news media works. That's why you have all these tensions everywhere in the world, everywhere you look, political battles, racial tensions, anything like that, because that is what draws engagement. And at the end of the day, engagement is what draws advertisers and what drives clicks, views, all of that stuff. And so that stuff has to be talked about. And that's part of the whole accountability thing as well. But yeah, that's my point. I don't mean it to come across as negative. At the end of the day, it's just reporting what's going on. And yeah, I hope that any of this made sense. I hope that any of you can understand where I'm coming from, and I hope that we can move past this situation, and I hope that the next time it comes up, because it's not if it comes up, I hope the next time that it comes up, we can revert back to these conversations and these thoughts and understand that this isn't a bash session. This isn't to point blame, point fingers, or anything like that. So that is my rant. My rant is over. Let's talk about the good things about the weekend. There's a lot of good things about this weekend. There's a lot of fun stuff going on. It was another GNCC. It was a mud fest. It was a tough race for everybody, but it was a very, very, very good weekend for a lot of people. Some of those people, Craig DeLong. Craig DeLong gets his first career overall win, and he does it in dominant fashion in the toughest conditions that you can imagine. And that's got to mean even more. To go out and win in a race like that, whew, not only that, that's a quick way to get the monkey off your back and get that first win. I mean, this is Craig's, I guess, third year or second year. Last year he was second in points. The year before that, now I'm confused. He won the championship and then defended it, and Johnny won the championship. And then he moved up. So, yeah, this has to be his second full year. I think he moved up at Ironman, the bad Ironman, the year Ben Kelly wrapped up the championship. And I think he got on the podium then. Anyway, I guess I should have been more prepared for that. Regardless of the fact, early on in Craig DeLong's career, he got this win. And not only did he get the win, he was on the show last week. And I think a lot of those conversations that we had last week with Craig DeLong, and if you didn't listen to it, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to Craig DeLong speak on this podcast last week, the week that he got his beginning win, because we talked about the thing. He said, first of all, let's get this out of the way. This guy came on this podcast and said that he has a problem with being aggressive, and that's why he was, especially on starts, and that's why he always had bad starts and blah, 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 blah. He said in Florida he got a good start, and he went for it, and he led some laps. But then he said he's got to work on that aggression and working on starts. He goes out and pulls the whole shot this weekend. So let's start there. Goes out, pulls the whole shot. He also talked about not wanting to lead. And then he goes out there and leads the entire damn race and gets the win. And then he goes up on the podium after the win, and he said the same thing. He's like, I didn't want to lead this race. And so I went and led this race all the way to the checker's flag. So it was just funny that the same things that he was talking about last week on the podcast was a complete turnaround to it this week as he goes out and gets his first career overall win. But last week, when we were talking to him about the aggression, about leading laps, about grabbing whole shots, one of the things that he said was that he was just kind of timid being in the new class. And I straight up asked him, I said, hey, I don't mean to be rude, but do you think any part of that is you telling yourself or thinking to yourself that, hey, I'm the new guy in the class, maybe I don't belong or don't deserve being up front, leading laps, getting the whole shots. Maybe I got to come into my own before you go out and lead races. And he elaborated on that and said that that was part of it. Like trying to get that feeling of like, hey, feeling I belong in this XC1 class. So that was the thing going through my mind every time I saw Craig. And then at the finish line, man, I could not help but to be smiling like ear to ear. Like, Craig had to have been happy. His whole family's happy. His whole team was happy. Outside of the people that are directly involved with his program, I had to have been one of the happiest people out on that track to see Craig DeLong get that first win because of everything that we talked about last week and because of thinking about not being deserving to be in that class. And the other thing that I asked him is like, hey, you got a podium in Florida. Everyone's not hurt. Half of the class isn't watching on TV at home. Every single person was on that starting line, and you got a podium. That's got to feel great, doesn't it? And he talked about that, and like, yeah, it does feel good. Well, same thing. You fast forward into this week, everybody was on that line. Every single person started this race. Former champion Josh Strang, former champion Ben Kelly, still obviously current title contender Stu Baylor, Johnny Gerard, XC2 champ, moving up. Grant Baylor, who's been on a tear this year, especially in National Enduros. But, Thad Duvall, who battled with Caleb for all those years. Lane Michael, who has the crazy sprint speed. Trevor Bollinger, who won an XC2 title. Ricky Russell, who won races to end the season last year. Like, everybody was on that line. And Craig DeLong was the first one back to the checkered flag. And now, regardless of what anyone says, what anyone thinks, Craig DeLong has solidified deserving to be in this class. Obviously, he did that as soon as he moved up. Any rider that can compete on that front row deserves to be in that class. But what I'm saying is he has now really came into his own, and I think that's got to go a long way in Craig DeLong's mind of saying, hey, here I am. We deserve to be here. This is where we're at in this race, or this is where we're at in this. And now, we talked about title contenders. There's no way you cannot say that Craig DeLong is a bona fide title contender in 2023. There's no way, because he beat everybody this weekend. Granted, it was in the mud, but last week wasn't in the mud. It was the toughest conditions of the year, and he was on the podium. And, kudos to Craig DeLong. I hope I conveyed that in a way that makes sense as well, but I'm stoked for him. Stoked to see him get that win, and I know that he's got to be stoked about it as well, because now also people go their entire career on that front line and not get one race win. And so now that you click that one off, you know that you can, and you know that you can go in the next one, and you know that you can lead meaningful laps, and you know that you can win races, and you know that you can be on the podium, and you know that you can score meaningful points, and you know that you can make a run at this championship. So hats off to Craig DeLong. Congratulations to Craig DeLong. Also, another great buddy of mine, Josh Strang, goes out there and gets second place. And Josh dealt with the injuries of last year. He got hurt in Florida last year, broke his arm, ended up having to get another surgery last year after coming back and winning a race. So he came back and won Penton in the mud and then had to get another surgery after that, and that took him out for the rest of the season. So everything, I guess, with him being a buddy of mine, kind of see a little bit more behind the curtain than normal as far as how it affects him, how it affects his family, with him being at later stages in his career and dealing with that injury and questioning coming back and getting back to his former self and getting that arm strong and getting that arm healthy and getting the body healthy and ready to race. And then everything that goes in with team, getting a new teammate and the changes that goes on there. It's been I had a really good word at the tip of my tongue, and now I forgot. Tumultuous offseason for Josh Strang, and then a hectic couple of rounds to start the season off. And there's no nice way to say it. I mean, that's what it is. If you ask Josh, he would say the same exact thing. The first 2 rounds did not go according to plan. And so for him to come out to this one and be up at the front of the race and be challenging for that race win and be there at the very end, even at the very end, had a chance at winning this race, to get in second place, to get in the big money, to get that bonus from the team. That's got to be an awesome feeling. But on top of all of the monetary gain and everything like that, you can see the emotions that go into it at the finish line. In the YouTube video, his wife Cam, the way that she comes over and congratulates him, the way that she supported him in the pits, in the pit video that we saw from Big Buck, you can see the emotion, the raw emotion coming out of it. You can see how much that means to Josh Strang to get back to this point, to be challenging for race wins, and to have a good race after starting off the season on a on not the foot that he was expecting to come into the season on. So Josh Strang, there's 2 former champions in the lineup, Josh Strang and Ben Kelly, and I was just as pumped to see Strang finish up there on the podium on the big box in the number 2 spot, while also seeing one of his Aussie prodigies, one of his training partners, one of the guys that he helps trains, Gus Reardon, getting his win in the XC2 class. So all around, great day for them as well, and pumped to see Josh up there as well. Now, obviously, 3rd place, Ben Kelly. When we saw it on Sunday, it was Stu Baylor. Now with the adjustment, Stu Baylor goes back to 4th place. Ben Kelly goes up to 3rd place. Keep in mind, they were tied on season points coming into this weekend's race. And so that is going to give the points lead to Ben Kelly. And, I mean, both of those guys rode a good race as well. We've sang Ben Kelly's praises on the podcast this year, like watching him barely be able to walk off the motorcycle after going 2-1 and winning a race, and then setting his bike down and hobbling over to sit down, and everything that he went through this past season to repair the shoulder, to repair the broken leg. I can literally feel his pain. Been there myself. And so to see him come back and have a good race. Obviously, Stu had a great race as well. It started off rocky. We talked about it yesterday, but just since we're doing the whole race recap, Stu, on the starting line, his race bike all of a sudden is no longer an option. So they grab a 2-stroke that was laying there, had a dirty air filter in it, different suspension, the whole 9 yards. He went to the line fully thinking he was going to have to race that 2-stroke. At the 10-second call, literally, his race bike comes rolling up. He drops the 2-stroke, gets on the race bike, starts the race. When you're starting your race with that much going on, it's tough to focus on what you got to do during that race, especially in conditions like that. So that's the way it shook out. Ben Kelly, like I said, he was right there. I think they were pretty close at the finish anyway, but Ben Kelly to ride through the mud. I didn't get a chance to talk with him before the race. I really wanted to talk with him before. I wanted to do the interview for, like if you'll notice, the last documentary-style YouTube video, it was 3 riders in there, and I wanted Ben to be the 3rd rider in this one, but just a lot going on before the race, especially with the conditions and everything, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him. But one of the things I wanted to ask him about was, I feel like in a mud race like this, there's a lot more where you're going to have to rely on your strength and your body to get through the mud, especially if you get stuck. You got to pull your bike out. You got to put the feet down and kind of dog paddle through some stuff. And with that leg, I was wondering how that was going to affect him as far as can't keep the feet on the pegs and just ride your race and keep the leg up and go at it from there. Like, there's probably is a lot of times where you got to kind of manhandle that bike or dab a leg or pick yourself up or whatever. So regardless of how healed that thing is, it plays an effect to some point. So for him to battle back through that, tied with the points lead, and be right there in the mix in that mud race is also a feat all in of, you know what I mean. It was a feat. One foot probably hurt more than the other. But anyway, so that's the way it shook out. Johnny Gerard had a couple not-so-good rounds to start the season as well. He was right there in a podium mix. I talked to Johnny a little bit, and on the last lap, he was actually in a podium spot. and ended up having a bike issue where his bike wouldn't start, and so he lost a lot of time in that one as well. But yeah, Johnny was close to being on the podium in this one. So that is the way that the XC1 class shook down. Leading into XC2, I guess it would be a good time to mention our good friends over at Beta Motorcycles. Beta Motorcycles is the official manufacturer of On the Pipe podcast. Beta Motorcycles have been family owned and operated since 1905. They're the best looking bikes on the market and back it up with their superior performance and rideability and premium quality. I skipped ahead of myself there. Head over to betausa.com for more information on their available models or find a dealer near you to get yours today. And that Beta power was out loud and proud yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. And by yesterday, I mean 4 days ago now, since it's Thursday now. But you know what I mean. Started the race, Jonathan Johnson and Evan Smith out in front. They actually led the overall for the first couple laps. So that was cool to see the Beta boys out in front. We saw them out in front of XC2 for the majority of the race. And then, like many people, ended up being some bike issues with Jonathan. So Jonathan was running in a podium position after leading a lot of the race. So he ends up, once again, just like Florida. It was right there, right in grasp. This week, it was also right there, right in grasp as well. So hopefully we'll see some more strong rides from Jonathan coming out. But it ended up with Gus Reardon, grabbing his first XC2 win going into last season. That was my guy. That was the guy that I said look out for. Like going into last season, he was a Aussie that raced the West Coast for a while, so a lot of you hadn't heard of him, and that's why I said remember the name, because he's going to be challenging up there for race wins and race podiums. He got a podium pretty early on in the year. Last year at Camp Coker, he led the overall. He led the overall in the race for a lap, and I think just got a little bit too excited and kind of blew his wad too early in that one. But and that was his words. I think he actually said that on this show. But Gus gets it done. He's been on the podium, like I said, before in XC2, but he backs it up, gets his first XC2 win, and I think he's like 17 or 18, so still young and very, very fast and has a lot going for him, and he's going to be a guy that is going to be in the mix in this class, so keep an eye on him. But Gus Reardon grabs his first win in that one. Evan Smith, first podium finish since 2019. So talked with Evan a little bit after the race. He's stoked on it and has every right to be. So to see those boys running up front, man, it was a party in the Beta pits pretty much all day long, getting the boys out there and seeing, and really happy for them to show the world what they're capable of. So yeah, I hope we can bottle this success and keep it rolling. So them Betas out front looks good, especially when you hear that two-stroke come screaming through the woods. So Evan Smith, your second place finisher, and Cody Barnes actually fell on the start and worked his way back from the back of the pack to grab another podium. So Cody Barnes is like he's like the silent assassin. I feel like you don't hear a lot about him. He doesn't present himself out there a lot, but man, he shows up, he digs deep, he rides hard, and he gets good finishes. Cody Barnes rounds out the day in the top three, battling back to get up there and earn that final podium spot. In XC3, we saw Jay Lipscomb grab that whole shot and lead that thing from start to finish and win by 16 minutes. So, yeah, quite a gap on the competition in that one. It was Jay Lipscomb on that Beta machine. And then Jack Walker, your number 2 finisher, and Dakota DeVore rounding out that XC3 podium. Once again, we did it yesterday. I'm going to do it again. Shout out to the Beta boys. What a weekend. What a blast it was to be hanging out with the guys, to be helping out during pits, and just be hanging out all weekend. And then, man, what a time that was being in the Beta pit while the boys were all out front. It was a good time. And then we look at our overall amateur, our top amateur on the day. It went to none other than Michael DeLosa, the adopted local We claim him as a local down here in North Carolina. I think he's from Pennsylvania, but two-time Mid-East overall champion. He races a lot of the Mid-East races. And then he goes out there and grabs the overall top amateur spot in less than ideal conditions to do so. So congratulations to Mike DeLosa. We'll probably see him this weekend at the Mid-East Hare Scramble in Morganton, North Carolina, where I will be announcing. So come on out if you need something to do. And National Enduro's out in Texas. I don't know where you're at, but I would be willing to bet that Morganton, North Carolina is a little bit closer than Texas. But we wish everyone safe travels and good luck if you are traveling out west to Texas. It is cool that a series goes that far out there. You kind of get in the same rut of like going to the same places on the East Coast. So when you start heading out to the Oklahomas, to the Texas, to the Michigans, that's pretty cool to get out there and see those places that you wouldn't otherwise see. So, yeah, that is going on there. Back to this past weekend, looking at our WXC class. What a photo finish that was in that WXC class. Rachel Archer and Rachel Goodish came across the finish line at damn near the exact same time. So I don't know if you've seen the video. I know Mason Rader took it, or maybe Kyle Wolf showed me the video of it. Yeah, Kyle Wolf did show me the video of it that he took. So Rachel Archer comes to the finish line, and as she's coming through the finish line, which that was a gnarly area of the track. A lot of people could barely make it through the damn finish line. But Rachel Archer's coming through the finish line, gets a handful, falls off the back of the bike. Bike goes flying sideways. She goes falling on top of it. And then all of a sudden you see Rachel Goodish come behind her and literally jump over her back wheel, like rode up her back wheel over Rachel's bike and to the finish line. So Rachel Archer was the first one through the trusses, but Rachel Goodish was the first one to Ricky Towery. Obviously, Ricky doesn't stand at the actual finish line. The actual finish line is where the transponder line is, which is at the finish line, as we learned when Stu Baylor pointed out to us where it was at Big Buck. But so Rachel Archer, in her crash, made it to the transponder line, and her transponder did ding. So she made it to the finish line first, so she gets the win. But Rachel Goodish, like I said, was right there to cap. If Rachel Archer was a foot shy of that thing, Rachel Goodish had her first career race win as well, which what a sight that would have been to see all four pro classes with brand new first-time winners. That would have been pretty crazy. But, so yeah, that is the way that shook out. And then Corey Steed, from what I understand, had some issues early on in the race, and so she rides back to a third-place finish to round out the podium and gain some valuable points there as that WXC points battle continues to heat up. So that is the way that everything shook out. Some other storylines of the day. Like I said, we got that YouTube video up. I'm going to keep doing those at all the races, so I hope you guys enjoy them. If you have any feedback, like I said, good or bad, feel free to let me know. But they're a lot of fun to do, but it allows more storylines and stuff to come out. So one of the times I was standing there and I saw KTM about to pit, and so I actually posted that video as a reel yesterday and on TikTok. But when we were standing there, Ben Kelly comes in, and they're changing his air filter. And in dust races and mud races, air filters get changed quite regularly to get either the dust out or the water out. But what a high intense situation that is. You're in the middle of the race. You're trying to do this fast. You got to pop the cover off, pop the air filter off, put the new air filter on, put the cover on. In that video, you can see like the air filter is trying to get put in upside down. It's not fitting. Then we turn it, get it in there, it's starting to fit. Then we got to get the cover on. Then we got to get gas in. We got to get goggles on. We got to do a swap. There's a lot going on in those pits. And when the first rider comes in, which is Ben, it's kind of all hands on deck. Like, hey, let's get in there. Let's get this thing done. As I'm sitting there, and this is actually what I talked to Johnny about after the race, but I think there's 4 or 5 people all trying to get Ben's pit stop done. Gas, goggles, everything, air filter change, all of that. Johnny Gerard comes in and comes up behind and like yells at the guys. He's like, hey, and then he revs his bike. He's like, I need to pit. And everyone's like attention is on Ben, and then everyone looks back and sees Johnny. That he's like, oh shit, Johnny's in the pit now, and then they all go over to him and start pitting Johnny as well, and he got out of there pretty quick after the pit stop. But what I was talking with him about is like it was one of those situations where live in the moment, standing there with a camera, it felt like an eternity. Like I felt like Johnny was there for like 5 minutes before they saw him. And then he got pitted and got back out. Same thing with the air filter change. It's like, oh my God, like this is taking forever. But going back and looking at the video, like the air filter didn't take that long. Like, yeah, it got put in upside down first and he changed it, put it back in there. And then after that, he was out pretty quick. Like cover was back on before I even realized that the air filter was in. And then they're also like, if you look at Johnny, he gets there, yells, revs, and then is getting gas like within a few seconds, like mere seconds. But like I said, in that moment, man, that felt like it was so long. Like just standing there looking, and like I was torn. Like you can tell in the video, like I stand up because I was like pretty tight in on the air filter change, and I like stood up and start inching towards Johnny because I was like, dude, like what can I do? Can I grab something? Can I help Johnny? Because like all these dudes are my buddies, so it's like, man, what can I do something to help here? And then that's when they all jump in. But like I said, in that moment, I was like, dude, this is an eternity. But yeah, going back and looking at the video, it wasn't nearly that long. And but no, I thought that was not funny at the time, but it was like going back and looking at it, I was like, okay, I want to see how long this took. And in reality, it wasn't nearly as long as it felt at the time. But yeah. Outside of that, man, I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for coming here, for listening. I think we've built a pretty big community in OTP now. And like I said, my goal is to kind of be the premier news source and talk about what's going on. And I can't do that without your support. So I'm very thankful for your support. As always, I know I say it on here, be a friend, tell a friend, let somebody know. Like if somebody else you know is passionate about racing as well, let them know where they can find all the information. And that's right here, OTP. Thank you for watching the YouTube videos. Thank you for being a part of that. YouTube is one of the things I'm really trying to build up now because everyone can watch riding videos. Everyone can watch the same slow motion edits with or without music, however you want to do it. Me personally, like a lot of the riding videos tend to be the same. So I want to get into the art of storytelling. And that's what I'm trying to do with these videos. And hopefully we can do more one-off videos and stuff as well. But that's something that I'm focusing on, so I would really appreciate if you go there and subscribe to that YouTube channel. It helps me a lot, and then it'll also help you, keep you in the loop. You can listen to the podcasts on YouTube as well. They all get pushed to YouTube. Once I get the new studio set up, I'm in the process of it. We're going to have a whole studio set up there. From then on out, it should be videos every single week, so that'll make it a lot more palatable on YouTube to watch there. Right now, it's just a picture. Like I said, I upload the audio to my hosting site, and then the hosting site sends it out everywhere. So Google, Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, it sends it out all there. After that, or coming up, once I get the studio set up, I think we're going to go live on YouTube or like send it directly to YouTube, so you'll be able to see the show. I got some screens and stuff I'm working on, so you'll be able to see stuff in the background. Hopefully, we're gonna inch closer to a real production once we get that thing going. But subscribe to that YouTube channel so you can stay in the loop on all of that and be up to date with what is going on there. I appreciate it. The subscribers on YouTube probably mean more than the subscribers anywhere else, but don't let that stop you from subscribing on Stitcher, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff, because it does help a lot. And like I said, I'm trying to make a living at doing this, and laid the groundwork, and now here's where we take off and where we go from here. So thank you for being a part of that. Thank you to Zach Tussle. He is a sponsor of the show. Zach Tussle is a racer and a financial advisor with Raymond James. He has been on the show in the past. He has been on a starting line in a race that you've been in, most likely. He is an avid racer, and he wants to bring a lot of his business from the people that does the same thing he does and has interests that he has. So I encourage you to hit up Zach Tussle, a typical financial advisor. I guarantee you has no idea about your dirt bike and what you do on the weekend. weekend, Zach Tussle is there racing with you on the weekend. So stand-up guy, you can get a free consultation just for listening to OTP and mentioning OTP with him. Hit him up on social media, send him a DM. He's open to it. Search for Zach Tussle on there. Like I said, he was on an episode of this podcast, so you can find him tagged in that. Or you can go to financialadvisorsdenvernc.com, and you can fill out the form on there, and he will actually reach out to you. But as I mentioned, a free consultation to see what he can do for you and if it is beneficial to you, all for listening to OTP. So hit him up, let him know you're a listener, and hear what he has to say. If you're 18 years old, you just got your first job, you are in the best position ever to have a financial advisor. It doesn't take a lot of money. You don't have to be a millionaire or anything like that. That is a lot of the big misconceptions, and that was one of my big misconceptions until I met Zach and became buddies with him. So hit him up. I'm telling you, he can help you out. And also OTP screen printing. The premium quality and wearability of OTP screen printing can bring a fine quality t-shirt to you or your business. I guess I should write an ad read. I got an ad read for everybody else. I might as well make one for myself. OTP screen printing is obviously my screen printing company. That is what has consumed my life here lately. And the moment I hit post on this podcast, I'm going an hour away from my house to go screen print more t-shirts and do everything that I need to do to get my screen printing stuff a mile from my house. So it's way easier to screen print t-shirts. But in the meantime, I am wide open and I am ready for you. So if you need shirts made for your company, or you work for a company and you know the person in charge of getting the t-shirts made, go to them, ask them, be like, hey, can we use this fella? Listen to his podcast. He joins us on the races. He's a good fellow. Let's do it. I can do it. I don't care if you're in Texas, California, Florida, Pennsylvania, Illinois, I said California, wherever you're at. We can do your t-shirts and get them out to you, and I would appreciate your business. OTP Screen Printing. It is on social media at OTP Screen Printing, and hopefully we'll have a website soon. But I'm getting started, and I would appreciate it if you could help me get started by sending me some business. Premium quality and wearability. OTP screen printing. Thank you, Beta, for the idea. See? Teammates. But, yeah. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this. If you thought yesterday's shows were a little bit of a stinker, I understand. I still thought that there was some good stuff there. I'm glad Stu came in, hung in the pocket. We talked about it. Yeah. I'm not going to elaborate on it. We're moving past it. We're on to the next one. So, on to the next one. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you next time.